Tom's wife probably won't be able to have kids. That's why you shouldn't marry an older woman. That's what my boss Smith told me at the company where I restarted my career at 40. I was shaking with anger and demanded he retract his statement, but he didn't even realize his mistake. Worse yet, at the company's founding anniversary party, he and his wife insulted me and my wife. Oh, is this Tom's mother? I thought she was his mom, not his wife. As a small crowd gathered and quieted down, the CEO came running over with a pale face. I never expected to meet here. I'm Tom, and 40-year-old. I work as a medical equipment service engineer. The company is a major player in the industry. I joined the company last year as a mid-career hire, so this is my first year. I've decided to work here for a long time, so I'm striving hard every day. In general, people tend to be accepted regardless of their age or number of job changes. However, when it comes to the department head named Smith, it was different. He gave me skeptical looks. Even with engineering experience, moving jobs at your age, did you make a big mistake at your last job, or are you planning to leave here soon too? I guess he had his reasons for thinking the way he did when I joined the company at 40. I had been an engineer at other companies until my late 20s, but after that, I spent time abroad until I turned 39 last year. Initially, I went on a working holiday to Germany, where my sister lived after getting married. Then, for about 10 years, I lived in various places like Africa and the Middle East, working with Doctors Without Borders. My role in Doctors Without Borders was that of a logistician. A logistician is responsible for procuring and managing supplies and equipment needed for aid. This also involved ensuring transport and travel routes for patients. I was a non-medical staff member working alongside doctors. When I first went to Germany, it was just a one-year working holiday, a light-hearted desire to see a bit of the world while young. Having worked as an engineer in America for over 5 years, I couldn't picture spending my entire life at the same company. And that first experience abroad was more shocking than I expected. It was a stark contrast to the flexible America, where everything required my own responsibility. People are very straightforward and punctual, which motivated me to be hardworking. Although German people are generally introverted, that didn't make me feel isolated so bad. I ended up loving the different surroundings from American culture. Using all my abilities to live each day was fun for me. I regretted not experiencing living abroad earlier, like my sister. She moved to Germany for college, got a job, and married there. She said to me, "Tom, you're just like me. More alive living abroad than taking it easy in America. Why don't you come back after your working holiday is over?" I deeply felt the same way. So, after safely spending a year and returning to America once, I was preparing to go back to Germany while working part-time. It was then I came across some job information that decided my future. I saw a recruitment ad for Doctors Without Borders staff. It's a job that involves traveling to places around the world where medical care is inaccessible, living there while helping people. It's a job dedicated to providing labor for people suffering from conflicts, natural disasters, and poverty. As I researched, I found they were recruiting electricians, architects, and also medical equipment service engineers. For each of these professions, practical experience was essential. Having experience as an engineer, I filled out the application and applied right away. In the interview, they asked in detail about my motivation. I want to support healthcare with what I can do. I want to use my English skills, physical strength, and mental fortitude, everything, for the sake of others. I spoke passionately and was accepted. After that, I was registered as a dispatch staff and participated in domestic training. There was more than half a year until the overseas training, so I kept working part-time during that period. My first dispatch was to the Middle East and Africa. In the town where I was sent, there was a shortage of vaccines for infectious diseases, and many people were becoming severely ill from diseases that could be easily treated in America. The medical team's mission was to vaccinate all the children in the town center. I was in charge of managing the vaccine transporters and drivers. Just transporting the vaccines was a very difficult task in that town. The road conditions were terrible, and it was hard to manage the temperature of the vaccines under the scorching sun. The vaccines that finally arrived safely were ruined when the town's power supply was cut off. Interactions with the drivers were also challenging. Not everything could be communicated in English, leading to misunderstandings and sometimes arguments. But when I finally completed the mission, I was filled with a sense of happiness. The unity I felt with the doctors, staff, locals, and patients I worked with was an irreplaceable sense of achievement. By that time, I was almost 30 and had decided to make this work my main job, forgetting about returning to my old company or America. Over the next 10 years, I grew not just as an engineer, but also as a general logistician, a staff leader, able to manage the dispatched staff. There were many dangers, and I even fell seriously ill myself, but I felt like I had found my true calling. Being single and unattached, I thought I'd keep performing these noble medical missions and live this way forever. However, I met a woman last year, and luckily we got married. Her name is Susan, and she works as a doctor with Doctors Without Borders. We worked hard together on the same team, and at some point, we realized we were attracted to each other. She told me she had feelings for me, but didn't talk about anything beyond that. "I'm 10 years older than you," she said. Yes, she was 49 at the time, 10 years older than me at 39. I always felt a bit odd about her saying that. Susan had been in this line of work longer than me, so she should know that age difference doesn't matter. There are plenty of couples with significant age gaps abroad, and it's not unusual for the woman to be older. At least, I don't think we need to worry about the age difference. To me, she is not only a respected doctor, but also a beautiful and beloved partner. "I'm seriously thinking about marrying you, Susan," I said, making my intentions clear repeatedly. But she wouldn't say yes. So, I thought there might be some other reason besides age, but I didn't ask further. One day, our medical team started an emergency mission. A hospital in a conflict zone was in danger. We had to safely transport pregnant women waiting to give birth to another area. I was busy securing enough fuel for the transport. After managing to transport everyone safely to another hospital, I realized she hadn't arrived at the new location. The local staff told me Susan stayed at the original hospital. She said she wouldn't return for a while, despite the risk of the hospital being caught in the conflict. I rode a bicycle tens of kilometers back to the original hospital. There, I found her trying to make scared little children laugh. They were the siblings of the babies about to be born. We could only transport a minimum number of people, leaving behind children with many siblings. Knowing the risks, she stayed to comfort these children. If she was staying, I decided to stay with her. She thanked me with a troubled smile. That night, after the children had fallen asleep, she shared her story. "I have an older sister. When we were kids, I was frail, so our parents paid more attention to me than my sister. I always thought she must have felt lonely. Of course, those in weaker positions should be helped first, but helping them sometimes means sacrificing others. These children here, separated from their mothers and siblings-to-be, must feel so alone." After getting my medical license, I left home in America. I was healthy, so I hoped my parents would start paying more attention to my sister. I haven't been back in a long time, but I hope they are doing well, getting along. Hearing this, I felt I understood the reason behind her remarkable character. Her strong sense of self-sacrifice stemmed from her concern for her older sister. Perhaps she believes she shouldn't be happier than her sister. If she can't bring herself happiness, then I'll give it to her. The next day, as a general logistician, I confirmed the budget and devised a way to transport the remaining children to the new hospital. I managed to do it. With no more worries for the left-behind children, Susan moved to the new hospital. There, I proposed to her again. "In return for you sacrificing so much, I decided to work harder to protect you." Finally, with tears in her eyes, she said yes. When we get married, we didn't have a fancy ceremony or party. Instead, we distributed food to the less fortunate. Everyone congratulated us, and we were really happy. Afterward, I chose to return to America alone for work to support Susan. We rarely stayed in the same place, often in areas without internet. So, I needed to be in America to stay connected and provide a base for her to return to whenever she needed. That's why I re-entered the workforce as an engineer. The introduction Susan gave me from the companies she'd worked with around the world led to positive interviews everywhere. I chose this major medical equipment manufacturer because they prioritize Doctors Without Borders activities, even having a dedicated department for it. The company valued my experience and expected me to be an immediate asset. I've been giving it my all this past year, trying to meet their expectations. I gradually built good relationships with colleagues and supervisors, though I still have issues with my boss, Smith. Tom, you've been living apart from your wife since you got married, huh? You sure it's not some romance scam? Despite being a department head, he has no real understanding of Doctors Without Borders. It seems he has a relative who is an executive in the company, and I hate to say it, but he's more of a figurehead. He doesn't seem to be involved in any important work, so he's always less busy than other employees. That's why he's so annoyingly curious about my personal life. It's a real marriage, not a scam. We met, fell in love, and then got married. I answer him casually, but he always tries to prolong the conversation. Your wife is much older than you, right? Besides, she is a doctor. I can see why she'd choose someone like you. I really don't think there's any love there. Oh, well, no need to worry about us. We do have love. He looked unimpressed with my response and walked away. I sighed and got back to my piled-up paperwork. As I was sorting through documents, Emma from the next desk struck up a conversation. Tom, did you know his wife is really young? He's around 50 and she's about 30. Yet, he goes around calling other women old. What's with his obsession with youth? She is a 23-year-old young lady and often shares office gossip with me. I see. You get a lot of attention from him too, right? She made a face. I think older people can be great, but someone like he is just creepy. It's like anyone young will do for him. It's not about age. It's about what's inside. I totally agreed with her perspective. No matter how old Susan is, I love her for who she is. Last night, Susan sent me a picture, looking cheerful. Currently, she's at a refugee camp in the Middle East, caring for malnourished children. In the photo, she was smiling, surrounded by local kids. Despite their thin frames, each child's eyes sparkled with vitality, a sign that her efforts are successful. I am relieved. She looked like a mother to those kids. I remembered her once saying, I consider myself a second mother to the children I work with. Even without children of my own, I feel like I have kids all over the world. I nodded in agreement with her sentiment, recalling the conversation vividly. I opened the email again, just to glance at the picture one more time. She really is a wonderful person. Oops. Sorry. I snapped back to reality at Emma's apologetic voice. Sorry, what's up? I asked. Oh, no, I was just, that photo. Is that your wife? I'm sorry, I was peeking. She pointed to the screen of my computer. That's no problem. You're right. This is my wife. Opening personal emails on my computer at work is not something I should be doing. It's been a whole year since we got married, and I haven't seen her, so naturally, I feel lonely. Well, your wife has such a nice smile. She's naturally beautiful, and more than that, it's a smile that comes from the heart. I felt genuinely happy when Emma complimented Susan. After watching her look at the photo for a while, I said, okay, back to work, and closed the computer. No matter how lonely I am, work is work. I need to work diligently in America to support Susan if anything happens. I changed my mind and focused on work. A few days later, when I arrived at the office, there was a photo on my desk. It was of a young mother and a small child, strangers to me. As I wondered about it, Smith rushed over. Good morning, Tom. That's a photo of my wife and child. I thought it turned out well, so I decided to give a copy to everyone in the department. So, this is his wife. Just like the rumors, a couple with a significant age difference. Your wife is quite beautiful, and your kid is adorable. I couldn't say it out loud, but his wife was too beautiful for him. Of course. My wife was a former model. Feel free to display this on your desk. I guess you can't expect children from your wife, considering she's older. That's why you shouldn't marry an older woman. Excuse me, Mr. Smith. Could you please take back what you just said? Looking baffled, he replied. Huh? I haven't said anything strange. Your wife is not of childbearing age. That's why it would have been better to marry a younger wife. I'm just stating the obvious. I was trembling with anger, almost ready to punch this incredibly rude boss. How can you say that? We're fine without children. That's when Emma chimed in. Mr. Smith, that's workplace bullying. It's also sexual harassment and emotional abuse. I looked at her, and she seemed angry too. Wait, what are you talking about? Where's the harassment? I wish you wouldn't make such accusations. Do you both understand that my relative is in the upper management and still talk back to me like this? I was worried about losing my job, but I couldn't let his remarks slide. As I was pondering what to do, Emma boldly replied, I don't mind, even if I get transferred or demoted, but you owe Tom an apology for the disrespectful things you said about him and his wife. I was surprised by her courage, and also I was astounded by Smith's ignorance. Even after Emma's strong words, he said, children are expected when you get married, right? I didn't misspeak by saying you chose to marry someone who can't have them. There's nothing to apologize for. Enough, give me back the photo. Oh my, what a terrible morning. He snatched the photo from us and walked away. I repeatedly apologized and thanked Emma, who was still furious, trying to calm her down. Though it should have been me who was angry, I was grateful she stood up for me. A month passed. Smith blatantly ignored Emma and me. It didn't bother us since it didn't affect our work. However, after a month, he suddenly came to my desk. He was oddly smiling. Tom, about next month's anniversary party. It seems that employees with spouses are now expected to attend together with their partners. I remembered seeing something about the anniversary party in the company newsletter. I thought attending as a couple was the norm, but Susan probably couldn't make it. My wife is too busy with work to attend, I replied. He sneered and said, Are you sure? All employees aspiring for promotion are making arrangements to come with their spouses. It's fine if you're not interested in that, but surely, not being able to show your wife off isn't the reason, right? I felt anger rising in me again, but before I could react, he strolled back to his desk, humming a tune. Forget his comments. Your wife is doing important work. Don't worry about it, Emma whispered to me. I agreed. She was right. But that night, I received surprising news from Susan. She was coming back to America in 2 weeks for a short visit. After the current project is completed successfully, it seems that there will be a month left before the next dispatch. I jumped for joy. I finally get to meet her. I had created a place in here for times like this. We had a great time talking on the phone about where she would go and what she would eat when she returned to America. During that time, I also informed her about the anniversary party. She thought positively, saying, I'll definitely go with you. I'm very happy to have such an opportunity. Thus, we decided to attend together. 2 weeks later, we finally had the day to meet again after a long time. We spent each day feeling very happy. So to speak, this is our first day together since we got married. Our newlywed life together was rosy. Then, the day of the party came. Susan was in a classy dress, which was rental. It suited her. However, her hair and skin were a little rough after getting sunburned in Africa, so she said she would go out with minimal hair and makeup. When we entered the party venue of a luxury hotel, about half of the employees were in pairs. I also took Susan next to me and acted confidently. However, she seemed a little strange. Hey, do I look weird? I feel like people are staring at me. I told her that wasn't the case, but she seemed a little put off. Then Smith and his wife appeared. Hi, Tom. Let me introduce you to my wife, Olivia. She's beautiful, isn't she? Olivia was a former model, so she was more beautiful and had a better figure than anyone else in the audience. I also tried to introduce Susan. Nice to meet you, Olivia. This is my wife. Before I could finish my words, Smith interrupted me and started talking. Oh dear, is this Tom's mother? He said it out loud on purpose, so the employees gathered around. Not to be outdone, I shouted back. No, this is my wife, Susan. As the small crowd of people surrounding us fell silent, it was Olivia who spoke next. Wife, I thought it was your mother. Her beautiful face was distorted and ugly. Smith said, as if following her words. That's right. Everyone would think she's your mother. With that light makeup and messy hair. Did you want to stand out by bringing your parent to the party, Tom? Susan covered her face. I hated the stubbornness of the couple. The other employees looking at us were chatting about something to themselves. You made his mother cry. Why don't you take her to the exit? Oh, yeah. Ma'am, you're probably uncomfortable, so let's get out. I couldn't take it anymore. Stop it. I mentioned she's my precious wife. If you say anything more sarcastic to her, I won't tolerate it, not even from my boss or my boss's wife. When I yelled at them, Mr. and Mrs. Smith still laughed and said spitefully, "Oh, dear. He doesn't want to forgive you, honey." Huh? That's a lot of power, even though you don't have any backing. It was at that time. A middle-aged man made his way through the crowd and came out in front of us. The man said with a pale face, "Susan, isn't it you?" When she heard that voice, she looked up, saw the man, and her eyes widened. "William." While I was still unable to understand the situation, the next time, I heard a female voice. "Excuse me. Please let me go through." The woman who came out in front of us after the man had a face that looked just like Susan. "Ah, Susan. It's really you." The middle-aged man, the woman who looked like Susan, and Susan, they all cried as they hugged each other's shoulders. All I could do was watch it, except I heard Smith's trembling voice. "President and ma'am." After they cried for a while, Susan introduced me to them. "This is my husband, Tom. He's such a wonderful man." Then she introduced me to the two of them. "This woman is my twin sister. This is her husband, William, the president of this company." According to subsequent explanations, the woman is Susan's older sister, and her name is Sophia. In fact, this medical device manufacturing company was founded by the twins' grandfather. Susan only had 2 female twins in her generation, so she had no choice but to take a son-in-law to take over the company. That person is this middle-aged man, William. I felt embarrassed that I was working without knowing the face of the president of my company. The president had been treated as a potential son-in-law at Sophia's house from an early stage, and from Susan's perspective, it seemed like they were in love with each other. But she thought that if she had been there, her sister would have passed on that happiness to her, so she left home as soon as she got her medical license and never returned. William and Sophia got married and took over the family business, and they have been waiting for the day when Susan would come home. The 3 of them have always been good friends. As for Susan, she always gives her away to someone else without thinking about her own happiness. But it's wonderful that she found a wonderful partner and was able to meet her again like this. What a beautiful day. Sophia was so happy that he burst into tears. With the exact same gesture, Susan cried with joy as well. The president also told me with a big smile, "Tom, thank you for your continued support of Susan." I expressed my appreciation to him. The president then glared at Mr. and Mrs. Smith and said, "Smith, you said a lot of things to my precious sister-in-law. Your wife seems pretty, too, but she doesn't seem to know the manners in a situation like this." Smith shrank back, but Olivia was still glaring at him in frustration. Apparently, she was an extremely strong-willed wife. Normally, if you saw an old woman like that, you'd think she was his mother. What's wrong? Ignoring the president's request to stop, she continues speaking without admitting her fault. The most important thing for a woman is whether she's pretty or not. A beautiful woman is the most important. That's why I'm better than Sophia, no matter how much I'm the president's wife. Of course, I'm better than Susan. I don't know how she was treated and lived her life, but I thought that Olivia was a person who grew up to be a good adult, leaving behind all the things she should have known in life. It is lucky to have been born with a beautiful appearance. Coming from a good family background and was born in America, where there are no inconveniences. But I've met many people who don't. I have met many children today who have no food to eat, no water to drink, and no place to study. Also, for those who I want to help and spend my time and money, I think the most beautiful human being is one with a beautiful heart. People who can laugh even if they can't see the future. People who enjoy the happiness of others as if it were their own. People who can share it with others if they have a lot. People who can hand over important things to. The wife I chose is that kind of person. Therefore, I don't really think that Sophia is beautiful. She was still talking. "Hey honey, you always say that. This is a good opportunity to say it. President, make my husband a director as soon as possible." There are relatives, too, in the executive seat. Hearing her words, Smith finally crouched down, hiding his face. The president heard it and said, "Smith, what do you mean? I'm sure our company prohibits hiring connections." Then, a man who appeared to be his relative took a step forward and answered tremblingly, "Oh, no, you see, this guy will never get promoted." Olivia yelled angrily, "What the hell are you talking about?" The bad things were compounding, and there was another person who came before us. It was Emma. She stood in front of her and said, "I'm a co-worker of Tom. My name is Nana. I'm the daughter of the president. I don't want my connections to be used, so I work under my father's maiden name." I was working without even knowing that she was the president's daughter. Emma then turned to the president and said, "It's not just my opinion. It's the opinion of the whole department, but Manager Smith is harassing the department a lot. I've recorded myself, so you can listen to it later, Dad. Even his manager's position lacks power, I think." Then Olivia screamed with the appearance of a devil. It's not like a little girl is interjecting. A father who hears such a thing is a father too. My husband is the one who deserves to be the next president. Then, Emma stood in front of her with a calm face and said, "Your husband is always making advances on me, due to my young age. There are many other young female employees who have been sexually harassed. I have also recorded it, so you can listen to it." This time, Olivia couldn't say anything. She looked at the manager with a broken expression on his face. I too stood there unable to say anything as too many facts were spilling out all at once. Only the joyful classical music echoed through the venue. In such an awkward atmosphere, Susan was the first to make a move. She approached Olivia. Then, in a calm tone, she spoke to the couple. "You're very beautiful. Mr. Smith also cares about you very much. You two, right? You were worried too much about my husband and said a lot of things. Please talk to him often and make things up quickly." Even though she said a lot of mean things to me, she looked like an angel to me because she was able to forgive me and say things like that. She's in a better position to be angry than anyone else. Thanks to her kindness, calmness gradually returned to the venue. Several people from the crowd came up to her side and said, "You know, I stared at you because you looked exactly like the president's wife. I'm sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable." They apologized. Other employees forced themselves to praise Smith, saying things like, "He has some good qualities. He's easygoing in his department, so it's kind of easygoing." Even Olivia said to her husband, "Did I say too much to you? I just said it because you listened to me. I'm sorry. Please don't hate me." I was once again impressed by the incredible purity of Olivia's energy. Even in the project, when she is around, both anxious children and adults become relieved. Even though the staff and I don't have enough food for tomorrow, I feel like I'll be fine. She has everything, including family status, money, and good looks, but even if she lost all of those things, I still think she has the most beautiful heart in the world, and I have to live my life so that I don't feel ashamed of my wife. Thanks to her, we managed to recover from the awkwardness of the party and were able to safely complete our anniversary celebration. After the party, we planned to use the remaining days of her stay in America to go on a short trip, but I canceled it. I thought she should spend the rest of her days with William and Sophia. When I told her, she unusually expressed her disappointment. I was really looking forward to it. I felt happy but firmly responded, "They were probably looking forward to seeing you even more than me." Honestly, I was really looking forward to the trip too. But we have a long life ahead together. There's plenty of time for us. Giving up a few days for them is nothing in comparison. I decided to marry her with the commitment to bring her happiness. Her happiness is my happiness, after all. Susan thanked me profusely and enjoyed her remaining days with William and Sophia. I was invited several times, but as a regular employee, I didn't have the courage to spend private time with the president. Gradually, I started to feel that maybe I could join them one day. After she returned to conflict zones, my department underwent some changes. Firstly, Smith suddenly started learning about Doctors Without Borders. Everyone silently observed, not pointing out his previous ignorance. Then, Emma left the company. She decided to go back to university to pursue a medical career, inspired by Susan. I want to be a cool woman like Susan. My brother's there, so the company will be fine, she said. The president and Sophia were supportive of her decision. I believed that Emma, fearless and strong, would surely become a great doctor. On a day with a pleasant breeze, I stood on the company rooftop, looking up at the sky, and thought to myself, Susan, your influence is incredible. I'll keep working harder and harder.